Probably the most amazing thing to ever erupt in the current gaming sphere was the rise of the indie games. Games made by the little guy. They could be made by a small team of dedicated programmers, or they could be made by just one guy and an old computer. Indie games have always existed, but they never really got any actual recognition for what they were until the 2010s. There were a few notable indie titles in the 2000s, but they were seen more so as sleeper hits. As the cost of AAA game development rose as the years went by, big studios started focusing more and more on creating bigger budget games and no real room for anything else. Then the indie devs stepped up and started to fill a niche that really needed it. Little fun games you could buy for a few bucks instead of nothing but AAA slop for 60 or 70 bucks. Around the 2010s, more tools for game development started becoming available to the public. Unreal Engine, Unity, Godot, it was now easier than ever for anybody to make a game they wanted to with these tools. Now, you too could throw a Mario model in an empty open field with deer and get people to rally for Nintendo to hire you. Joking aside, it's amazing. We can see all these creative ideas come to fruition with these, and some of these ideas would get tons of attention and publicity. Some of the most popular games of the past decade have been indie games. Five Nights at Freddy's went from a game made by a single Christian man to a global marketing powerhouse now with a blockbuster movie. Even the little guys can hit it big if all the cards are played right. So right now, from any part of the world, in any place or location, anyone can make their own indie games. But let me repeat that. Anyone can make their own indie games. That also includes people who have a very different type of creativity. There are indie games you can find that are completely nonsensical. They could only come from the minds of the individuals that made them, and nobody else. I was sent some of these my way and asked to look at them. You think you've seen strange? You ain't seen nothing yet. These are the indie games we dare not speak of. Who doesn't like dolphins? People with no souls, that's who. I don't think it's controversial to say that dolphins are some of the most beloved creatures on the planet. That's why they show up in a ton of fictional media. In the world of video games, though, they deserve way better. Probably the most well-known dolphin game is Echo the Dolphin. And Echo the Dolphin sucks. Yeah, I'm sorry to all those die-hard Echo the Dolphin fans, all three of you, but the game is slow, boring, and confusing. It looks nice, but graphics cannot save your game. It's pretty to look at, but that's all I can really give it credit for. I'm showing off Echo's graphics just to give you something nice to look at before I melt your retinas with the complete opposite of this. I was notified of another dolphin game out there that was made by one guy, and it is quite the strange game indeed. Echo was about your aquatic friends being abducted by aliens, but this game I'm about to talk about manages to surpass even that in terms of strangeness. This is Dontrel the Dolphin. I'd make some comment about the title screen, but this guy can probably draw better than me, so that's out the window. The game starts off with, oh my god, what is that? Is that Tails Chew? Is this hidden Sonic Chew lore? I sure hope not. The game starts up and, oh sweet Jesus, look at this. We're in for something special here. Does this look fun to you? Well, it plays worse than it looks. Your movement speed is agonizingly slow, and the controls are extremely stiff. Whatever direction you're holding, you will keep moving in that direction no matter what until you stop moving entirely. Like, look at this. I am holding left on the keyboard right now, and he is still moving right. And the physics, well, what physics? This game has no physics. You can jump infinitely, but not only that, you can also walk in the air. You essentially have free reign pretty much anywhere. Well, anywhere in this damn box. The first area of the game, and you're stuck. I see this little opening up here, and thought maybe I can just squeeze in. Nope, invisible wall. Well, there's nowhere to go, but I'm not giving up. Knowing how busted this game is, I must be able to glitch through one of these tiles, so I start rubbing up against everything I could, and oh look, it worked! So now that I've escaped my prison, I have no idea what the goal is, so I'm going to assume that the goal is to touch that Made in Game Maker light watermark to exit the level. At least that's what my mission was now. Everything else in the level doesn't really seem to do anything. These orbs only raise your power level, whatever that means, and the enemies can't really seem to hurt you. What a lovely sound. I want to die, but God won't let me. What even are these enemies? Like, there's boxing sharks and evil triangles. The level geometry also just seems to be all over the place, with no rhyme or reason. Sometimes you can pass through the ground, sometimes you can't. I mean, this whole thing is just a complete mess. I understand this was maybe just some guy's first game, but why would you make this available to the public when it's this busted? This orb is black. What does this one do? Oh no, you touched a death core. And I've just touched the escape key. Okay, so that's the end of that. But that was actually the version 1.0 of Dontrel. I actually got an updated version that's not as busted. What the hell happened to the music? The last game was a decent little MIDI, but what is this? It sounds like a high school band slowly dying of carbon monoxide poisoning. So the game somehow looks worse. Oh God, look at the background. The gameplay is improved though. You move at a decent speed and get the ability to throw a sword, so there's actual gameplay now. I mean, it plays like a typical platformer now. Nothing too interesting other than the art design. This wouldn't last, however, as at the end of the level, you come up to what seems to be a boss fight against this thing. All it does is move left and right and drop eggs, which spawn enemies. An extremely simple attack pattern. The issue is, this thing will not die. I spent maybe 25 minutes or so wailing on this thing, and it just wouldn't die. I died a few times, had to redo the previous level over just to go back to the boss and still not be able to kill it. I tried going in the door, I tried killing the enemies, nothing worked. I eventually gave up and tried looking up what to do online, and unsurprisingly, there are slim pickings when it comes to people playing this game online, but I did discover this video by this dude, which seems to be a more updated version of the game, and even he couldn't kill the thing. He actually racked the score counter up to 10,000, and the thing was still alive, and after enough, he finally succumbed to it. I am now convinced this pink demon thing is the hardest boss in gaming history. Dontrel the Dolphin, I kneel. So even that version I can't get far in either. But there are even more updated versions of Dontrel with even further improved graphics and other such changes. But actually, Dontrel the Dolphin is a series. In the second game, you can ride a dragon, and in the third game, it goes 3D, where Dontrel moonwalks throughout the entire game.
Like, I'm not actually interacting with any of the things on the screen. I'm pretty much just an independent entity. Just pasted on the screen. You know what would work just as well? If I had a sticker of this dolphin on my monitor. It would be the same effect.
I do have to comment, the art styles in these games is very weird and interesting to say the least. You don't see many games like this that look like they're made from DeviantArt drawings. I'd love to show more of these games, but I can't because, except for the early versions of the first game, all the others have been lost. I checked the Internet Archives, the Wayback Machine, and it seems only the first game has been saved from this fate. How lucky we are. These games are not very good, like, at all. These games feel like a kid drew some art in his free time and threw them together in a game engine he had no experience with and just winged it. And the end result isn't pretty. But you want to know something? That's how I started my YouTube channel. I got a hold of Adobe Premiere Pro, started it up, got some assets, and winged it. And look where I am now. I admire the dev for actually going through with this. They're not good, but they're entertaining. I feel even stuff like this should be archived for anyone to play, to experience a guy just doing something for the hell of it. And speaking of which, the dev is very active to this day. He still makes games and has some available to buy on his Games Vault for $1, which feature our pal Dontrel in it. And they seem to be a more polished version of Dontrel's games, still with that DeviantArt aesthetic to them. To add to that, he's even written books on these. Yes, books, and they're probably better than Brick by Brick. I mean, just look at the reviews. Throughout my life, I've been forced to read terrible books falsely labeled as classics. At the time, I was young. I was naive and ignorant until I read this life-changing masterpiece. Dontrel Murphy's world building is truly impeccable, and his use of imagery makes you feel there. Allegedly, this was based on the classic Dontrel the Dolphin video game, and it shows. Dontrel the Dolphin is such a complex character. Having been born with a severe jaw problem, he must save the course from an evil sorcerer king. He travels through lush jungles and mountains which contain entire planets inside of them along the way. His struggles with his disability provide an interesting commentary on how people in today's society struggle with mental disorders. In general, this is a work that provokes thought and deserves college-level literary analysis. I cannot recommend it enough to the most loyal Dontrel the Dolphin fans. There is this little weird cult surrounding these games, with memes and images existing for it, so there is a fan base for this kind of stuff. I'm really just here to put a spotlight on it. Just because the gameplay sucks doesn't mean you can't appreciate the creativity and art style of it. I didn't enjoy playing these, but I did enjoy finding out they exist. Too bad Dolphins still don't have a good video game, though.
Harry, you put your name in a goblet of fire.
Now, this may come as a shock to some of you, but I love RPGs. I love RPGs of all kinds. When we're talking about weird abstract RPGs, Hylics is the first example that comes to mind. But we can go even more obscure than that. What about an RPG that makes so little sense you flat out need an alternative source to understand some aspects about it? Well, let me introduce you to Goblet Grotto. Goblet Grotto is a very strange game indeed. It's a game you'll play once and it'll just stick itself into the back of your mind and never leave. Once you start it up, you're given some text on the side. You are in a black wood. See paragraph 4 for a description of the black wood. You feel tremendously enthusiastic about the prospect of the goblets and adventures ahead. Wolves are rapidly closing in on your position. Wait, what? Well, what a way to start the game. So after that beginner's trap and killing off those damn wolves, this game may look and feel like an old school computer RPG. It's actually a facade. There isn't any actual role-playing to be had here. You're a frog and you're given one goal: collect goblets. That's it. You can attack, and you can pray, sleep, and eat. You can sleep to restore your health and eat meat you find to keep your stamina up. Praying is situational. Praying in the right spots can give you a whole cache of goblets. But outside of that, that's where the RPG elements end. Really, it's more of a collectathon than anything that's made to look like an RPG. It's a simple game when you understand all the basics, and that's the only simple thing about this game. You will quickly find out nothing in this game makes any damn sense. The areas you explore, the people you talk to, nothing has normality in the slightest. The NPCs you talk to look somewhat normal. I actually really like this 2D sprite and 3D art style this game is going for, and then when you actually talk to them, it's nothing but complete gibberish. Every single NPC you speak to in the game talks in gibberish. They don't point you in a direction to go, they don't give you hints, sometimes they'll just cuss you up because they can. None of these guys can help you in any way. The best thing the NPCs are for is actually killing them to give you meat to keep your stamina up. They give you flavor text, and then you make them a flavor. That sounded better in my head. So if the NPCs aren't helping you, what is the goal then? Well, there is no goal. This game has no goal, besides collecting goblets. This is basically a huge playground for you to explore. Well, not so much a playground as much as it is a giant maze with no end. What you're playing this game for is to see all the different locations you can visit and what weird-ass characters inhabit it. You can go in a random door and end up in a completely new area with a completely different theme. You can fall off the map and it doesn't kill you, it just teleports you to a new area. You're not really trying to find a finish line, you're trying to see as much as you can. And it is kind of fun experimenting and exploring and seeing what you can find. You can go from Pee-wee's Blacktown and end up in a suburban city where a murder was just committed. It's off the walls. Really, the goblets are just stringing you along on where to go, because other than that, they serve no other purpose. They're just there to collect. In fact, they're so disposable, whenever you load up a save file, your entire goblet counter is reset to 0. So unless you're playing this in one go, the goblets serve no other purpose. Speaking of serving no purpose, there are these weird symbols at the top right that are flashing constantly. What the hell are these supposed to be? Well, you get a hieroglyph translator with the download, and these are apparently supposed to be your character speaking. And you can decode what he's saying with this. Our main character must have been a bobcat in his previous life because he never stops talking throughout the entire game. These are coming on all the time, non-stop. You do manage to get used to it after a while, but this entire concept of your character's language needing to be translated is borderline experimental. Yes, insightful words of wisdom like Dario, Shouting Bird, and Crocus. This is a lot of effort for something that just means nothing at the end of the day. While we're at it, there's also a bestiary and a chapter book that the game wants you to constantly refer to. The most baffling thing here, though, is the manual, which mentions stuff like getting a blood test and spinning your goblets at stores, or buying a house. None of this is in the game. Yeah, there are shops, but you can't buy anything. There's nothing to buy. There is no currency, and there are no houses up for sale. This game would just flat out lie to you at points. Like here, it says you can look around with the right mouse button. Yep, I'm trying it. I'm trying. Nothing's working. The game just loves to screw with you. This is just the dev having a laugh. My biggest gripe with this game is not the confusing exploration. That's probably the best part about it. How every level has multiple places you can go depending on how you exit it. The biggest problem is the combat. The combat isn't hard in itself, like, at all. You only have one attack and every enemy basically dies in one hit. The problem with it is, as demonstrated when I first started, when you enter a new area, every enemy in the area immediately knows where you are and starts booking it towards your location. You'll be walking around just fine 1 minute, and the next thing you know, you are surrounded by enemies and they drain all your health in a few seconds. That run is over. Hope your last save wasn't too long ago. I played this game for a few hours, and I feel like I only scratched the surface of it. There is no real end goal other than just sightseeing, and there's also a bunch of drawings coming to kill you. You don't know what you're going to find next, and people have attempted, keyword, attempted to map this game out, but that just sort of ruins the mystique. Best way to play this game is completely blind and go nuts with it. Just don't expect to be told anything directly. That's a fool's errand. Have fun gobbling on Goblet Grotto. When you start up a game, what do you usually get? Some splash screens with the companies that made it, the engines it used, and usually the title screen. That's been the standard for decades. Well, how about a game that, when you start it up, it just drops you in the game? No titles, no logos, no nothing. That's how the game starts. You have no clear objective, just figure it out on your own. This is Funny Pizza Land. You were given no direction, no goal. You are free to roam this earth and do whatever you please. This is the opposite of hand-holding. This is dropping a toddler in the woods and telling them to find their own way out. So you play as this weird pizza face guy, and you just explore. Unlike Goblet Grotto, which gave you the illusion of an end goal, this game tells you literally nothing. You are on your own. Throughout the whole game, our titular hero is asserting his dominance by T-posing, and he never breaks this stance. Now my goal is just to find something to do. All you can really do is walk and see what you can find. You walk, and you walk, and you walk. It's a pizzeria. Can I go in? Okay, I guess not. I see this other place. Can I go in? Oh, come on, let me in. I'm a nice guy. Just look at me. Come on, just let me in. Oh, I don't think I should have done that. I come up to this guy, and he wants sausage. So, my first real objective, find some sausage. I explore a bit more, and eventually, I find myself roadblocked. I can't go anywhere else but this hedge maze, and I can't seem to get in. You can press the spacebar to interact with this icon. I did this before, but it's very finicky. I tried spamming it as much as possible. I tried motorboating these suggestive looking rocks for like 3 minutes straight, but no luck. Until finally, I go up near the gate, and now it opens. I walk past these gormless rockmen and eventually get roadblocked yet again. Now the gate is closed, and the switch, or whatever it is on the other side of the damn hedge maze. It was already finicky before, but now I have to go back and forth to see if I open the gate. Spend a good 10 minutes here until I finally walk up to the gate and hit spacebar. Oh, now it works! This game just has this eerie vibe to it. The music, the sound effects, it always feels like there's something just watching you around the corner. You just go along with whatever it throws at you. You eventually get a hold of a key, and now you can drive the pizza car. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. You can use it to jump this gap and end up in some sewer, and oh look, there's the sausage the guy wanted. You grab it, head back, and give the guy the sewer sausage, and now we're at some sort of moat. No. Is this a platforming section? I have to do platforming with tank controls? Oh, and by the way, you want to know what the key is to jump? The home key. You jump with the home key. I'm gonna give myself carpal tunnel playing this damn thing. I was surprisingly able to do it on my first try, and I come up here and see this guy going back and forth. Can't interact with him, but I see a button on the wall, so let's push it. We can go back, and now this drawbridge is down. Oh, that's a fun noise. That's a real fun noise. I won't get sick of that. My goal is now to find the source of that noise and stomp it out. You climb some stairs, hit a button, and then... oh, well, I guess that dude that was in the cage is free. You head back out. Now the area is completely changed. I'll walk into a forest and... what? Where the hell am I? I'm in a bedroom now? And, yep, this is it. This is the end. You can't escape from this room. Game's over. That was about an hour of me basically going in a trance while playing this. What the hell did I just experience? So, it turns out, there were cutscenes for the game that were supposed to play, but for some reason, just didn't for me. And they sort of tie stuff together, a big emphasis on sort of, because they still make no sense whatsoever. There's talk about the big media monster and these weird... I can't explain it. There's no point in explaining this. This is just weird for the sake of being weird. Just watch this and try to make sense of it. This game's existence is a complete mystery. Nobody knows why it exists, what it's supposed to mean, or when it was even made. All the files in the game say it was made in 2002, but there does not exist any conclusive evidence it was made around that time, so there's a possibility that it was made to look like a game from 2002, somewhere in the 2010s, but no one knows for sure. The only thing we know for sure, this game makes no sense whatsoever. A sequel was actually made very recently in a very different style, but you can only catch lightning in a bottle once. There is only one true funny Pizza Land, and it can never be recreated. Go check it out on Steam. One of the best things about the early 2000s internet was Flash games. There was a huge boom of Flash games during that era, all these small and unknown devs making these fun little games for completely free just to entertain people online. This was really the seed for indie game development. A lot of small-time devs got started here. What do you think Binding of Isaac got its start as? So yeah, this was a stepping stone for a lot of developers back in the day, but we're going to focus on one in particular. A dev known as Jazzuo. Jazzuo was a little-known Flash game developer from the Czech Republic, and was actually very influential in the scene. He made well over 50 Flash games back in the day, and they were spread across a whole variety of genres. There were shooting games, games where you purposely crash cars, samurai games. This man pumped out a ton of little fun games back in the day and created a name for himself. Some of his most popular games were the Star Wars games that were cheekily named Episode 7, beating Disney to the punch 10 years earlier. But by far his most popular and well-known game is a little game called Sexy Hiking. Now, I can't say that word too many times because YouTube will have my head, so I gotta be crafty with this. Now, what do you think a game with that title is about? Well, I'll let you watch and tell me. Does this look familiar to you? If you know about popular streamer-made games, this might look extremely familiar to you. This game was the clear inspiration for the game Getting Over It, with Benefati. Like, the resemblance is undeniable, and this was made all the way back in 2002, 15 years beforehand. Just because this is Getting Over It in its most primitive state does not mean it's any easier. No, you're not climbing a huge mountain, you're not going to fall miles and miles and lose hours, maybe even days of progress, but it's still difficult. It's a level-by-level basis here, and it takes full advantage of that to make them as difficult as possible. I played for about an hour or two. I couldn't make it past the first wall in level 2. That and the fact that since this is 2002, the physics weren't quite what they are now, and the game couldn't handle the epic strats I was attempting to pull off. Nah, that's a lie. I just suck. It's not a very long game either. It's only about 5 levels long, but you can bet it's going to make them feel like the longest 5 levels in your life. I have no clue why this game is named what it is. I'm not feeling anything from this other than negative emotions. It was a very popular Flash game back in the day, and then Wifery came and took it and expanded upon it greatly, which gave us that game everyone played in 2017 and took 5 years off their life. This game has enough popularity where people have made mods of it, even harder versions of the game for people to play, so if you're a glutton for punishment, there's that, and of course they found ways to import the levels into Getting Over It, and there's a Friday Night Funkin' mod. But at this point, everything has a Friday Night Funkin' mod, so that doesn't surprise me. There's also a small but dedicated speedrunning community for it. I mean, the game is basically perfect for speedrunning, so that also isn't a shocker. The legacy this game has left behind can still be felt to this very day. Jazzuo is now retired, probably living a comfortable life, just seeing the fruits of his labor blossom. He can now watch people flail around and get angry at his game, or a game inspired by his game, and just enjoy the show. I mean, after you make dozens and dozens of quirky little games, one of them is bound to stick, and one of them did just that. Here's to Jazzuo, his Flash games, and streamer overreactions. One of the most well-known indie game stereotypes is the pretentious walking sim. The games that have very little gameplay, but are made to make you feel something. You don't see them too often anymore, but in the mid-2010s, they were everywhere. There were a whole slew of games where the goal was just to walk and see a story unfold. Stuff like Dear Esther, What Remains of Edith Finch, Firewatch, and probably the game that kickstarted the entire genre, Gone Home. You saw a few of these get tons of attention every year in the 2010s. Big YouTubers would play them or talk about them. These walking sims, while popular, were also very easy to dunk on to make fun of, especially since a lot of the time they were attempting to tug at your heartstrings. People would call them corny or pretentious, and how they barely qualify as games as you're just walking around and seeing things happen. And on to the fact the quality of some of these could definitely be put into question. Now, me personally, I like my games to have way more engagement in them than this. But I do believe there should exist a market for these games out there for people who do enjoy them. But let's face it, if you watch a YouTuber play the game instead, you are basically getting the exact same experience you would if you played it yourself. You're just not the one controlling the glorified cursor. But if you like playing these yourself, more power to you. Due to how prevalent these were in the 2010s, we got some games that came out to parody them in their style, most notably the Stanley Parable, in my opinion the best walking sim to ever exist. But we're not talking about that today, we're talking about a game that is way more obscure. It's called The Museum of Dead Wifery. What can you even expect from a game called that? I don't know what I was expecting, but it certainly isn't what we actually got. There are very little videos on this game with barely any views. With a name like that, I can only imagine why, so I think it is my honor to introduce this game to a wide audience. When you walk in, this is the first thing you're greeted with: a MILF. The game is exactly what it says. It's a museum, so the entire game is just you walking around the place, looking at all the exhibits. Only thing you can do is walk and click on things. It's got some fun physics on it though. Oh boy, I always wanted to cause property damage! So what is this museum about? Well, the name sort of gives it away, but not really. It's not really about a dead wife, but instead it's a fictional game developer who made a game about his dead wife, who then proceeded to explode onto the scene and became famous for his game. And the entire museum is dedicated to his life and the exploits afterwards. So the game pulls you in, expecting to be some schlocky museum about a deceased loved one, but it's actually one big joke. The museum keeps going on to show how he would exploit this one game he made, even making a free-to-play version so you could spend money to not have more wives die. Oh, Damn, is that his wife? Holy shit, she's jacked! Can she be my wife? The entire game is just you going through this museum and looking at the timeline of this guy's life and history. His parents didn't support him playing games, he was picked on a lot, the usual. The art style in this, for some reason, is so alluring. It uses all sorts of mediums and just slams them all together. The portraits and characters are all these stylized 2D sprites, but then the other museum visitors are all stock photos moving around. And then for some of the exhibits, it uses these deformed 3D models. You can just enjoy the aesthetic of all the different areas to your heart's content. Wait, what is this? What is going on here? Okay, why do these baby animatronics have childbearing hips? Look at these things, Jesus Christ! The strangest thing of all, you can walk past this NPC and enter a secret-ish area, and there's the man of the hour watching an episode of the TV show Passions. And this is, actually, an entire episode of the show. You can sit here and watch it in full. Does it count as piracy if it's in the game I downloaded? Hey, it's an in-game mechanic, you can't get onto me for it. I'm just doing what the game allows. In the sea of walking sims, this one is done for purely laughs and tries to be creative. This is a fun little romp you can beat in a little under an hour. But there's also a secret objective. You can collect these hidden coins, and when you get them all, you get an extra hour in the ball pit. The game is pretty decent for what it is. I mean, I had my fun with it, and you should too. Go have fun with the museum about a dead wife. In 1998, the world was introduced to LSG Dream Emulator, which I would say is probably the most well-known weird experimental game in the gaming industry. Nothing quite like it has come out before or since, and people have tried, oh they've tried, but you can't really make anything like this game. It was based on a Japanese man's dreams, and dreams are just inherently weird and make no sense. The low polygonal graphics and empty worlds just add to the strangeness. This was a one-time deal. Nothing else can really come close to it and pull it off in the way it did. But I would argue one game made by a single guy in 2007 did, and it was called Revenge of the Sunfish. All the games beforehand had some sort of structure to them. You had a basic grasp on what the game was, how it played, and the mechanics. Revenge of the Sunfish tosses all of that out the window. Revenge of the Sunfish is one of the most unhinged, batshit crazy games I've ever played. The next time one of your friends talks about how weird and quirky them and their interests are, send them this and see how they take it. They ain't seen nothing. The game has you play as a guy that can throw a knife to hit a lever and then... Wait, what? What? What the hell? Oh, no, this is happening. Oh, it's time for... Oh, what the hell? The entire game is like this. Every 5 seconds, the game changes into something else. Every time you move to a new screen, you change into a completely different character with a completely different set of mechanics to work with. No rhyme or reason for anything. Stuff just happens. All the challenge of the game comes from just trying to comprehend what the hell you're looking at and what the mechanics are. You get no feedback if you're doing something right or wrong, and things will change in the blink of an eye. There were times where the format changed so fast in the span of 5 seconds, I was legit suffering from sensory overload. It looks like my computer was struggling even keeping up with what was going on. I played the last few games just fine, but no, it can't handle Revenge of the Sunfish for some reason. If you lose a section of the game doesn't care, it moves you to a completely different one. None of these are connected in any way whatsoever. And remind you, the main villains are supposed to be sunfish. There aren't any sunfish in any of these. It'll go from a platformer, to a shooter, to a quiz show to see which animal is the cutest. I don't know, this will— Oh God! You go from eating dirt in one to Filleting your keyboard? Oh god, oh no, take it away! Think of the advertising! You see all these YouTubers making hour-long analysis videos on Dark Souls and Fallout or Elder Scrolls. I would love to see a YouTuber just take a shot and try analyzing this. It would be a sight to see. You can't analyze this. You can only experience it for yourself. LSD Dream Emulator was based on a man's dreams. What was this based on? What was the inspiration? This game is like if you gave a 7-year-old MS Paint in a game-making software, gave him every psychedelic drug in existence, and see what the end result was. All this madness, all this craziness, and yet the final level of the game is relatively tame. It's a platforming segment in a castle, and you just have to get to the end. And at the very end, you meet a mad scientist who gets crushed by a giant robot Sunfish, and only now do Sunfish come back into play now. And now you get to fight the final boss. You push it off the edge, and you win. What the hell did I just experience? This is a game you just experience for yourself. You cannot put into words what this game is. You can try, and I've tried, but it must be played by yourself to truly understand. This is the final boss of weird experimental indie games, and 16 years later, no one has ever been able to come close to it. Revenge of the Sunfish must be experienced by anyone who is willing. Come and play with the fishies. Well, I don't think we're topping that one, so it's about time we wrap things up. Like I said at the start, anyone can be an indie dev now. We have a ton of tools and engines available, anyone can make the game they want to. If someone wants to make another quirky Earthbound-inspired RPG about depression, they can. If they want to make another Souls-like, roguelike looter shooter, they can. If they want to make an absolute acid trip that makes no sense whatsoever, they can. It's all possible. This is probably the best part about modern gaming. Anyone being able to make the game they want, budget and time constraints be damned. Here's to the future of indie games. God bless, like and subscribe, and good night. And the only thing that matters is that Pizza Tower won the Indie Game of the Year in your heart.
The Game Award goes to Cocoon.
Oh, correct the bloom and then it will really look next gen. This man truly is a fucking genius. Nintendo, hire this man. Nintendo, hire this man. He's using Unreal Engine in any